Well, as the military exercise known as Jade Helm begins in the southwestern United States, the conspiracy theories are flying, and the media is being forced to make a choice. Do you cover the crazy or call it out? Adam has more.
Jade Helm is a Rorschach test. Most people see it for what it is.
A 2-month-long war game by U.S. armed forces.
But many Texans think Jade Helm is a nefarious plot to impose martial law on freedom-loving Americans.
It's not a preparation for martial law, sir.
That's what you say.
And that's created a conundrum for the media. Do you cover the conspiracy theorists and their sympathizers?
The federal government has not demonstrated itself to be trustworthy.
Or do you point out that fears of martial law in the Southwest are simply absurd?
This is the stupidest conspiracy theory of the year.
Complicating the picture, Texas Governor Greg Abbott's decision to dispatch the Texas State Guard to monitor Jade Helm as it unfolds.
We're playing a pivotal role of government, and that is to provide information.
Still, most journalists are describing the Jade Helm backlash in blunt terms on the left and the right.
The idea that the federal government is going to go in and retake over Texas is just nonsense.
But some people are suggesting there's a legitimate debate.
A lot of people are putting out some theories. I hate to call them conspiracy theories.
And even if the mainstream media tries to calm the hysteria,
this is not anti-military. This is rallying the patriots.
There are other voices that may make that impossible.
So, Adam, I first heard about this about 2 months ago. The Boston Globe had it on its front page. I'd never heard of it.
It was a Matt Visor story, really good.
Great piece, really well detailed. And I actually found myself guffawing out loud a couple times as he describes a colonel coming from North Carolina, Fort Bragg, out to Texas to meet with these people. He lays out the whole thing, explains exactly where this is going to be. The colonel gets up and leaves, and somebody gets up, I don't believe the word the guy just said. But, you know, I thought that was the end of it, that it wasn't going to be. But now we find that people are, it's another example of, on the one hand, on the other hand, when there is only one hand.
Yeah, and I actually think that based on the coverage I've seen, the press has done a pretty good job saying, here's what a whole bunch of people are up in arms about, and here's why their concerns are ridiculous. There are some counterexamples, like the, I think, CBS live streaming anchorwoman who we just saw, who for whatever reason couldn't bring herself to call these conspiracy theories. But I think on the whole, the press is doing pretty well. And I do think it's coverage worthy as long as you call it out for the nonsense it is, because the fact is a hefty chunk of, America is sympathetic to this way of thinking, and there are politicians who are catering to them, and that is newsworthy in and of itself.
And just on that point, that Ted Cruz makes the point, the government has not been transparent enough. I mean, this thing, I think they could have diffused this.
I agree with Josh's head roll, and he should take it away.
I don't think Ted Cruz made a legitimate point there. The idea that untrustworthiness of government extends to possible military takeover and imposition of martial law is playing to the absolute worst instincts of a fringe element within American politics. And it's a fringe, but there are a lot of people in the United States, so it's a pretty substantial fringe. There's a long history and tradition in the South and in the Southwest of this sort of, posse comitatus, the sovereign citizen movement, people who think that the government is out to get them. And I think particularly when you have folks like Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz, sympathizing and saying, you're right, I'm going to be the voice to protect you. I think it's the media's responsibility to call that out. And I think I agree with Adam. For the most part, I think that the media has done a good job of calling out these idiotic ideas for what they are, idiotic ideas.
Well, I didn't think there was anything to this, and then I found out that Walmart is apparently part of it.
I know, they're being taken over.
And I said, I can believe that Walmart would be part of this. This is a big problem because even though the media has done a good job of being dismissive about this, as they should, we do have the problem, as Adam and Josh have pointed out, of major elected officials like Governor Greg Abbott, like Senator Ted Cruz running for president, more or less being in league with these folks. So these are not kind of like the posse comitatus conspiracy theories of years gone by where there were no legitimate people backing them. Here you have legitimate people in positions of power making common cause with them. I think that's a really hard thing to cover.
Well, but we have a bad habit, I say we journalists, of covering even when there's no legitimate people. I'm remembering the guy with the cows. What was his deal?
Oh, yeah.
Clive Bundy. I mean, okay, so so he was, major anti-government. They're coming to get. I'm taking a stand, and he got a few of his, fringe folks to support that, and of course he went off, and that would have still been going on if he hadn't gone off in the racist direction that he went into. But having said that, it is a conundrum if you're talking about people who have been elected to office to represent people. And also, we know that conspiracy theory is what? Based on a few kernels of fact. And here's a big one. How many people are up in arms appropriately about being surveyed? So if you take that and go up 2 or 3 steps, then it's like, okay, they're coming to get us. And if you don't believe that they can survey us every day, if you didn't know that, then why couldn't they be coming down here under the guise of military? Right here in Massachusetts, we've been asking, why are those helicopters
Oh, yeah, I know. And
flying over?
2 years later, they told us. But, Callie, I went back. I did actually use Jade Helm as a basis for a speech about, freedom of information. The government has not been forthcoming about this. You go back as far as Ruby Ridge. At first, everybody was sort of on the side of the government because, they must be gun-hoarding nuts. And then, a couple months go by and then years go by. Everybody took a second look at that and said, wait a second.
Well, there's always a huge problem of competence with the government.
Well,
and the fact that the government often acts incompetently and not transparently helps to feed these conspiracy theories.
Yes. Well, and that happened with Waco, too. But in this case, though, I'm not sure. When you say they haven't been forthcoming, I don't know what they could be saying that they're not. They're sending out members of the military to explain what's going on. I believe the Secretary of Defense, pardon me, was it the Secretary of Defense? There have been high-profile Obama, thank you, weighed in on this, addressed, theories about this being some sort of...
not taking over Texas.
Exactly. So I don't know what more they could be doing. I mean, should the president give a speech in prime time saying, I want to tell you? Because no one would believe him anyway. If you're someone who thinks this is happening, it doesn't matter how much outreach the government does.
He probably shops at Walmart.